Hi everybody, Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Adelita Grijalva is our speaker today. She's chair of the Pima County Board of Supervisors representing District 5. She's going to speak with us about the business of the board, her plans for her next term, and ask her questions about the business of Pima County. Adelita is a native Tucsonan, educated through the TUSD School District and the University of Arizona. She is committed to improving the quality of life for our Pima County community. Adelita was elected in November 2020 to the Pima County Board of Supervisors in District 5, and it's a 4-year term. The first Latina elected to this position, Adelita served on the TUSD governing board for 20 years and shares the honor of being the longest serving TUSD board member with only one other person. Ms. Grijalva serves as the director of Pima County Teen Court, a nonprofit juvenile court diversion program, for more than 25 years before beginning her service as a Pima County supervisor. That position helped her to understand that collaborations and coalitions that involve nonprofit, business, and government can bring about the best benefit. Adelita also serves as a volunteer board member for the YWCA of Southern Arizona. She has made a strong commitment to working with the community to create a coalition to address the biggest issues facing Pima County, including but not limited to housing people can afford, education, climate, and water resiliency, and healthy and safe communities. Adelita is proud of the organizations that are dedicated to diversity, inclusion, and education and equity, for all have supported her throughout her career. Adelita lives in Tucson with her husband Sol and their 3 children, Adelina, Raul, and Joaquin. Welcome again, and you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here always to talk to other Democrats about the issues that are important in our community. I have a little slideshow presentation. I've been doing that, I think, since the first DGT I attended during the middle of COVID. And I just thought that it's helpful to sort of get a base as to what's going on in our office, to understand what we're doing, and then that fields some questions that have some of the basic information out there. So if you'll indulge me, I have a couple minutes to go over some information. So first off, I'm privileged to represent 140 square miles of Pima County, the most urban district in Pima County, District 5, from Pascua Yaqui to Saguaro National Park, Midtown up to the Grant and Ironwood Hills, Wilmot and Broadway. It's a pretty vast district. We have 8 libraries in our district of the 27 in Pima County. I'm sure that's a question that will come up in a little bit about what is going on with our libraries. It is my 2nd year as chair, and for all 4 years that I've been on the Pima County Board of Supervisors, I've been in a leadership position, whether it's vice chair or chair. I am a mom of a senior in high school. I cannot believe it, for those of you who have known me for a long time. Our baby daughter is a senior, and I have Raul is in 10th grade and Joaquin is in 8th grade, all in TUSD schools and all in my feeder pattern. So they're attending the same schools that I did. So that's a pretty amazing thing to see your kids walk onto the campus that, you attended as well. So let me get into the updates on Pima County. This is what we've been working on. The current leadership on the Pima County Board of Supervisors and in county administration has allowed for some progressive and helpful policy changes and decisions that have had positive impact on the county and our community. After a major overhaul and in-depth study on classifications and compensation in our departments, Pima County has been able to dedicate millions of dollars to wage raises, reorganize departments and positions, and is working to address issues of wage compression. This is something that I did several times during my tenure on the TUSD board. And when I came to Pima County, I was surprised that nothing like this class and compensation study had been done since 1957. So when I was asking people and looking at salaries and kind of comparing them to what was going on in the market, that was a pretty sort of stark contrast to what we should be doing in Pima County. So I'm glad that that work has continued, and now we're in our third year of addressing some of those wage compressions. Feedback has been widely positive, with departments now able to hire competitively and reduce vacancies, which has been incredibly important. And as chair, I've been able to meet regularly with our mayor and city teams to strengthen the regional partnerships. And I've worked with county administration and our security to ensure that our board meetings are welcoming, accessible, and safe for all participants, which I think is incredibly important. And I do believe that overall, the collaboration with the city and county has improved greatly. And I think a lot of that has to do with the professional relationship that I have with departments and everyone else, but respectfully, the personal relationship that I have with the mayor, and the fact that we literally are comadres. I confirmed my goddaughter Luciana, and so we have a family relationship, which I think is really important in being able to talk to each other and having some really sometimes difficult conversations about the history with the city and the county and how we can make it better. And so we, big things that I think have, and I'm really proud of, since 2003, Pima County has purchased 7,723 acres of land that we're protecting. So in total, it was 7,723 acres. So a big portion of that is state grazing land to be preserved for open space and heritage conservation, wildlife protection. What we're trying to do is create a barrier around some of our really beautiful protected areas, and kind of protect them for now and forever. So D5 has advocated for this funding to be set aside every year for these purchases to protect our environment. The first ever heat ordinance by an Arizona county happened on August 19th, 2024, when the Pima County Board of Supervisors adopted, with a 3-1 vote, a heat ordinance to ensure health and safety of Pima County contractors and their employees. So all Pima County employees are covered by the regulations that are in our policies, but contractors and subcontractors from now on will have to sign an agreement that they're going to adhere to those protections that we passed on August 19th. What I thought was really great is Attorney General Mays looked at, we put it out for public input, and she wrote back with 9 areas in the heat ordinance that she was suggesting stronger language in order to make it stronger. And she acknowledged that absent the direction from the state and the federal government, that she was, really proud to call Pima County one of our Arizona counties. So I'm glad for that. And she was hoping, and we're hoping, that other counties will follow suit as well. 1,000 plus housing units funded by Pima County. So since 2023, the Pima County Board of Supervisors secured over $10 million for the development and preservation of over 1,038 affordable units. This money was set aside specifically due to D5's advocacy for $5 million each year to the purpose of increasing affordable housing in Pima County. Pima County, with the efforts of our Community and Workforce Development team and the commissioners on the Regional Affordable Housing Commission, have been able to secure millions in dollars for project development, stay evictions, and find transitional shelter for families and individuals. This is something that Pima County has been out of the housing business for decades. And our housing crisis is, in my opinion, an all hands on deck moment. So when we were discussing the budget in 2023, I suggested adding $5 million a year. It's not an incredible amount of money considering the situation that we're in housing, but my hope is that we will use this funding as leverage for other federal and state funds that are available. Updates on District 5. Our D5 office has been working hard over the past year. Our current staff is my Chief of Staff, Keith Bagwell, Director of Community Engagement, Nicholas McCullough, and Special Staff Assistant, Naomi De La Rosa. Elvira Suarez-Din gave nearly 4 years to Pima County before heading off to help the Harris Walls campaign. So as much as I wanted her here, we need her there. And so I'm sure we'll continue to hear from Elvira. Our office has been very busy in 2024. And so, 2024 is not over yet, but in the 8 months that we've been doing work, we've attended 206 different meetings, 198 events, shared 510 social media posts. So that's an average of 404 or 50 events and meetings a month. We use our social media as a way to share information, resources, always doing our best to be transparent, open, and accessible to the community. And for those of us who are not on getting our newsletter and updates from our offices, please, at the end of it, we'll give you all of our social media and ways to connect. Please do, because after every board meeting, I provide an update on what we voted on and what I think is important to community members. And so if you don't want to listen to sometimes 7 hours of meetings, you can listen to me for, 7 minutes and get an update. It's important that while we're in this office, we do our best to demystify government, our systems, what we can't and can't do, and do as much as we can for our community. One of the ways that we do help with communicating with our constituents is by ensuring that we keep a strict 24 hours or less response time for any calls or requests. We attend all 52 neighborhood association meetings in our district and provide regular updates, vote summaries, recaps of all of our meetings. So again, please check those out. And I also like to do that because sometimes I make a vote that if you read the item, you're like, well, why doesn't Adelita support this? And so what I'd like to do with specifically for those decisions is explain them, clarify issues that might be confusing just, on paper. And so I ensure that I'm continuing to be your voice on the Board of Supervisors. I'm glad to see that many other elected officials and community leaders have followed our lead, including Mayor Romero, Councilmember Santa Cruz, as well as Superintendent Trujillo, and just letting people know this is what we did, this is what we're doing, and this is an update. And thank you, Michael, for that. I appreciate that. So making our meetings and policy decisions understandable and clear to everyone is a vital part of what I believe is the service of this office and any elected office. So August newsletter. So each month we publish a newsletter recapping last month and highlighting the local businesses, young person or people and organizations that are making a difference in our community. The Somos D5 newsletter is a great way to make sure that we're helping share the stories of the people we meet or events we attend. So just in the month of August, we recognize International Overdose Awareness Day, the City of Tucson's 249th birthday, Dr. Valenzuela Day, El Güero Canelo Day, and several back-to-school events, a tour of one of the county's housing projects for people who are facing emergency eviction, and the graduation of over 20 students from the Trades Build Futures program, and honored the 20th anniversary of Cafe 54. So the highlights from 2024 so far. 2024 has been a lot of highs and lows. I was honored to be reappointed by my colleagues for a second term as chair of the Pima County Board of Supervisors, and I am proud as chair to continue my strong commitment to working with community to create coalitions to address the biggest issues facing Pima County, including housing people can afford, education, climate and water resiliency, and healthy and safe communities. Keeping our meetings respectful, safe, and accessible is also critically important and something that I've taken very seriously. I also got to celebrate one of my favorite months of the year, Love of Reading Month. So if you haven't had a chance to visit a classroom and read to your favorite book to a group of students, you're missing out, I promise. We read to 36 schools, 36 elementary schools in our district, and I tend to adopt some of the districts, some of the schools neighboring mine, because I do just love doing it so much. We read to over 1,800 students in D5, and the teachers and librarians are always grateful to have visitors and readers. And, I am the daughter, sister, and wife of librarians. And so if I am not a strong advocate for the libraries, I hear about it. So I always try to be. And always in Tucson, we start the new year by gathering to honor victims and survivors of the January 8th shooting. This year, it was wonderful to be joined by Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and the community coalition that is formed to advocate for gun reforms and gun safety. One of the low points for me this year was the day that my daughter woke up with fewer rights than her grandmother. The repeal of Roe v. Wade, which set off a wave of damaging anti-women, anti-reproductive rights bills and measures, made its way to Arizona too, passing the 1863 abortion ban. However, despite the best efforts of some in our legislature, Pima County and our state were able to work together to repeal that, and the fight is still continuing. A big thank you to Representative Stephanie Stahl-Hamilton for her leadership in changing course on that decision. For our District 5 priorities, the last time I spoke to you all, I presented our newly created strategic plan. It's been that long that we now have a strategic plan 2.0. So the District 5 Somos D5 strategic plan was formulated with over 50 community leaders, assistants over the course of 2021. These individuals brought expertise spanning labor, housing, environment, education, and community organizing and business. Many of you that are here today were part of that, so thank you for your leadership. The Somos D5 strategic plan is a living document, and our staff has been working to implement and revise parts of it as goals have been accomplished and roadblocks have arisen. I'm glad to say that our strategic plan is still going strong and continues to shape the efforts in our D5 office. We are now working on the goals and objectives created in our strategic plan 2.0. So District 5 has accomplished a considerable number of those objectives in the plan, and thanks to community support and the people of Pima County, but much work remains, and many things are still in progress. And so I encourage you all to have a chance to look at those, and please give me some feedback. In 2023, District 5 gathered many vital community allies to produce a revised and updated document to guide the work in the upcoming months and years. It will remain a living document subject to changes needed to reflect the policy successes and changing circumstances. Our values and mission remain the same. They reflect the legacies of the remarkable District 5 supervisors of the past, David Yetman, Raul Grijalva, Richard Elias, and Betty Villegas. Education. Education is the great equalizer. I'm the granddaughter of Bracero, who came from Mexico with the promise of work and a better future, and the daughter of a member of Congress. That is the opportunity that a public education can provide in just one generation. For those of us elected and privileged to represent our community, we have a great responsibility to speak up for those who do not have a voice. It has never been more critical to make sure that our young people are starting off with strong foundations to ensure that they can grow up to be productive, engaged, and knowledgeable community members. Having a quality public education is a wonderful gift, something that no one can take away from you. But too many of our students are struggling to access quality programs because of the lack of resources. We must speak up for our young people and for our future. That's why over the past year, D5 has continued to strengthen and add to our education pillar for our strategic plan. There is still a lot of work to do, but I'm glad to share just a few of our successes. Consistent allocation of $10 million each fiscal year for the Pima Early Education Program, PEEPS. So thus far, that's $30 million. Our community resources webpage and our website continually updated to include new information. Most recently, programs that seniors and people who are using SNAP and EBT can easily access fresh produce from farmers markets. Our third annual D5 art contest was our biggest yet, with 307 entries from all schools all over D5. And the Board of Supervisors approved the creation of the Pima County Office of Digital Inclusion, which is tasked in creating networks of broadband, internet, and connectivity in Pima County, especially rural areas. These are some of the items of our plan that we have prioritized, ensuring our office supports access to resources, educational opportunities, and emphasizing the importance of positive experiences for students and families inside and out of the classroom. So we're working on expanding safe routes to schools and supporting the development of a new Pima County one-stop center at the Pima Community College downtown campus. In order for to get an education, students will be able to get to school safely. For many of our community schools, however, these are challenges, whether it's unshaded walkways, unsafe sidewalks, busy streets with no crosswalks. Other challenges or obstacles that students and families might encounter. Our office plans to collaborate directly with schools and districts to find safe pathways to solve issues that might prevent students from accessing their campuses safely. And we've already done that with 4 schools in our elementary areas. Pima County One Stop, which helps students and adults finding employment opportunities, provides training and offers resources, is an effective model. And I've heard so many success stories from program participants and mentors who have described the positive influence that this program has had in finding careers and offering support to struggling students in our community. And I'm very excited to say that thanks to $2.7 million from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, a satellite Pima County One Stop will be created at the PCC downtown campus, and is in a prime spot right in the heart of D5, an area that has been underserved and that will benefit Pima students and community members. So, environment and climate resiliency. Our environment is ensuring that our community is climate resilient as possible. I'm a board member of the Visit Tucson board, and what I've learned during those meetings is it's surrounded by a very diverse group of people that we might not align politically, but what we do align on is the importance of our environment and the beauty of Tucson as a economic driver to bring people to visit. And so I think that it's really important that we continue to talk about that we, from, you know, all of the beauty needs to be stewarded carefully and with vigilance, from new mining projects and proposed interstates to sprawling developments. Our natural resources, habitats of our plants and animals, and even our own quality of life are constantly under threat. This is why we have prioritized purchasing the protection of over that 7,700 acres of open space. D5 is proud to have advocated for that funding. Some of the things that we've been able to accomplish thus far: secured $2 million for the third fiscal year in a row, $6 million thus far for the preservation and protection of the open space, develop comprehensive revisions with community feedback and community input to the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan to further strengthen environmental protections, passed a joint letter with Pima County and Santa Cruz counties in support of an establishment of an urban wildlife refuge along the Santa Cruz River to protect and steward this cultural and environmental treasure. And we presented comments in opposition to the air quality permit application by Copper World to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. This joint letter from Santa Cruz is a great example of what we can do when we work together. And so we cannot have a prosperous Pima County without a healthy community. And if there's not enough water to survive, if our air is contaminated, there is inadequate shade. These are all things that are very important. I'm going to skip a little quickly. Healthy and safe communities. As a lifelong resident of Pima County, we understand that there are barriers to educational resources, employment, housing, medical assistance, and perhaps most significantly, support for mental health and physical well-being. We are aware of numerous challenges that our country is grappling with: rapidly rising flood of mental health crises, substance misuse, inflation, and homelessness. Unfortunately, I see this in my own district. We all do. And there are many underserved and underrepresented populations who have to face these crises alone or without adequate help. Due to systemic inequalities, many who suffer do so in silence. However, these issues are not separated by class, age, race, gender, or sexual identity, or wherever you live. I know that people are affected at every level of society and every part of our community. And so what we're going to do is work with Pima County, the city of Tucson, and many wonderful programs and organizations that exist here to address those obstacles. From safer working environments to supporting arts and culture and their positive influence on our well-being, D5 has had the chance to champion several efforts during the past year, including the heat ordinance and the class and compensation. So we also have a lot of events. I feel like I'm going a little long, so I want to make sure to leave some time for people who have some questions. We are focusing and working with community organizations, the county department, to reintroduce tobacco and vaping ordinance. This was something that was introduced to the Board of Supervisors and failed 3-2. So we're going to join the city with their existing ordinance and improve upon it. With the new school year in full swing, I hear from teachers and administrators, and I see it when I'm dropping off my own kids, that this ordinance is an important step to make sure our young people don't grow up with nicotine addictions and health issues. So we can go to the next slide for housing that people can afford. I'm just going to go through this very quickly because I feel like we're going a little long. In the past, D5 has engaged in a conversation of affordable housing in several ways. March 5th, the Board of Supervisors approved $1.4 million for 3 affordable housing projects on top of the $9.5 million allocated for the 10 affordable housing projects, so 1,038 units in all. We submitted revisions to the 2025 legislative agenda, advocating for the elimination of the state ban on inclusionary housing and to allow counties to use impact fees for affordable housing. And we've just had a lot of opportunities to speak with experts in this area in order to combat the lack of housing and affordable housing units, we approved a market study, and Pima County's Prosperity Initiative is going to look at ways that residents are able to succeed, including quality of education, access to services, and the cost of housing. We will not be able to solve this problem overnight, but it is my hope that working closely with the city of Tucson, we and the city of South Tucson, our regional partners, will be able to make progress. So we need to get the community members into housing that they can afford, keep our neighborhoods thriving, and ensure Pima County is working with property owners, homeowners, tenants, and residents creatively and consciously. So with that, the next one is keeping up with us. This was the slide that if you want to take a little screenshot of, we'd love for you to keep in touch with all the things that we're doing. Stay tuned with our office and check out our website. And we're very active on these platforms. And so please check that out. And then in regards to my campaign, we are, it's campaign season. If you'd like to help with our campaign, we'd love to have you. I'm working together with my father, Congressman Grijalva, Gabriela Casares Kelly for recorder, Betty Villegas, the legislature, Natalie Luna Rose, and Dr. Ravi Shah, TUSD. And then we are trying to be a big umbrella for a lot of organizations. So this Saturday coming up, beginning at 9 a.m., we're going to do a yes on Prop 139. And so we'll be working with Arizona List and Planned Parenthood to have a big gathering there. So if you'd like to come by, we have signs there. You can help make lip packets. You can come door to door. You can make phone calls. There is something for everyone to do, and we need all hands on deck. And so we'll be starting evening canvases next week. And so if you'd like to join us for that. But with that, I believe that is it. And I am happy to take any questions.
Yeah, we'll help you do the Q&A. Let's see, I actually have a question for you, and that is very interested in the beginnings of really examining the role of a library. And I think that's going to be a very interesting road to just, listen to all parts of the community.
Yeah.
Has anyone done any research on your staff to kind of look at similar size cities and how they've kind of dealt with the issue?
We are doing a lot of that. So one of the things when so let me just preface this by saying the draft of the library plan was sent out too early, prematurely, in my opinion, and there were a lot of questions that needed to be asked about that. As I mentioned, I am the daughter and wife and sister of librarians. And so for that to get out like on a social media platform before we even saw it here at the Board of Supervisors, I think is incredibly unfortunate. With that, I think it's important for us to go to every site that is being impacted, either positively or negatively, to talk about what do these proposed changes mean. And I do want to reassure the community that there is a deadline date. There's a date floating in the document that says December, that things will be closing by December of 2024. And I have been assured that that will not happen, that all of these libraries are budgeted through the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So we will continue to have services uninterrupted in those spaces until then. And then what I think is important, and something that I've sort of lent my, I guess it's unfortunate experience in Tucson Unified, is having to go through 3 different sets of school closure processes, is making sure that patrons of all of these libraries understand if this should go through. What are the negative impacts? Obviously, is this facility would be closed. But then what if anything will be positive? For example, if Santa Rosa, which is a library in District 2, is closed, there is a library also in District 2, Sam Lina Library, which is a library my mom used to work at, and my husband, I believe. But if that closes, does that mean that Sam Lina will get more hours? Will they have more access to services? I want people to understand what those changes mean. If El Pueblo Library, which has I have a huge space in my heart for El Pueblo Library. It's named after my Nino, Frank Santa Cruz. If that closes to become a community hub, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And so until I am confident that every effort has been made to do outreach, I will be a no vote on all changes. And then we have the biggest one, downtown Tucson, right in the heart of our community. If that, and I have to acknowledge that there are millions of dollars in maintenance things that have to happen there. Anyone that works at that library can explain that to you, that there are some real structural issues there. But we have not, I mean, I had a conversation with the mayor literally yesterday. We have not had a conversation with the city of Tucson about what that means. So that is a county function inside the building and a city-owned property. Same with Santa Rosa. So we have to make sure that we're opening all of those lines of communication to see what happens. And downsizing happens in a lot of spaces, but I do think that it's important for the library to classify if some place is getting a lot of gate time, people are coming in and out, they might not be checking out books, but they're utilizing services. That is important. And while I agree that libraries are playing roles online, you know, since post-pandemic, we see a lot of requests for online information. Things are digital. That's great, but that does not change the need for the bricks and mortar facilities. And so having to balance those, we're going to have a lot of real serious conversations about that.
Well, it's good to hear we are.
Based on a question in the chat, it may not be clear to everybody what exactly we're talking about. There's closures proposed for, I think, 8 branches. Could you just expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So there are proposed changes to several branches. One of them is downtown Tucson, which would be the draft document says temporarily closed, relocated, and then we're going to try to figure out something else to do with the downtown branch. There's a proposal to close Santa Rosa totally, and that one is in a city-owned building and is right next to Drachman Elementary and down the street from Carrillo, and it serves as a space for a lot of people to come. The proposal is to close El Pueblo Neighborhood Center Library, the Frank de la Cruz Library, and create a community resource hub, which I'm not sure what that means. And I haven't seen any draft information about what that looks like. There is a closing of a Dewhurst Library. And so again, all of these are in a draft document. They are available online. If you reach out to our office, I'm happy to get you a copy. It's just adelita.grijalva@pima.gov. But if you Google it, it's also on the library website, so you can have access to it. But basically what is being explained is that there is a chronic understaffing. They can't fill positions. And so I need to understand a little more about what that is. I worked in the library as a page. My sister still works in the library. My mom retired from the system. My husband worked in our Pima County libraries. And my experience with it is once there was a full-time position open, everyone ran to the job. And they always had a lot of people that were applying for jobs. So if that's changed a lot, then I'm wondering if we're competitive enough in our wages for that, for those positions. So there's just a lot of questions that are still unanswered in order for me to feel comfortable taking any kind of position on the draft document.
Well, thank you, Adelita, for filling us in.
Yeah,
And Lillian Fox has a question for you.
Hi, Lillian.
I'm so glad you're taking on the libraries. When I've looked at where these libraries are located, it looks like they're in lower income parts of town. And as I'm sure you know well, lower income kids have a lot less access to books, and they're much less likely to be, whether in their homes or being near a library. And it's easy for people to say, oh, they can just go to this other library, it's nearby. Not if you're a kid, you can't. You know, the distances, a distance a kid can travel is much less than somebody in a car. I think you named off the 4 libraries that are going to be closed permanently. So it's Santa Rosa, El Pueblo, downtown, Santa Cruz, and Dewhurst.
Right. And then no, and I think the other is trying to remember the other library. But the idea, Southwest, the Southwest Library out there by Hohokam.
Right.
Area, that neighborhood. And so what the proposal is there is that one would stay open until Mission Library, the Elias Mission Library reopens, because it's under construction right now. And then when the Mission Library opens, that they will close the Southwest Library and build a new one. And so I also think that it's important for people to understand that. And one of the other ones is they would do, I'm sort of envisioning like a Amazon box, you know, where like you place an order and you go and pick it up like with your phone. That's sort of what they're saying with some of the services that would be available, like at the Dewhurst Library. So I also think that we're not taking into account not only our young people, but our seniors and the kind of services that are needed in those libraries for all of our patrons.
A lot of times to know that you want a book, you have to see it. And if all they're providing is online access, kids aren't going to have any idea what's available.
Nope, I completely agree.
Okay, well, hope you win.
Thanks.
Okay. Shirley Muni has a question for you.
Yeah, I'm another retired librarian, and my system that I retired from 25 years ago has been going through some of that too. And it's a common thing. The story was front page in the Daily Star and lots of reaction already in the letters to the editor. So you're going to be hearing a lot from the community. However, that's not my question. My question is, on this open land that you've just acquired, is there any conflict with the proposed route of I-11?
Well, so the Board of Supervisors by 4-1 has 2 different times assent in opposition to I-11.
I know, yeah, I know that.
So, and no, the proposed, any of the conservation lands that we've acquired are not in the line of I-11, but many neighborhoods are. So, that has been something that's fairly consistent. And if the demographic, the people coming onto our board changes, I anticipate that that's going to be a 5-0 in opposition for I-11.
Good,
It's come down to party line and that issue.
Good, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, George Beverly, welcome, George. You have a question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. I have a question about the southwest part of town. Our part of town, we're a new Oakland developed neighborhood, but we don't have any grocery stores or, you know, our gas stations. We don't have libraries either. And we don't have any, I haven't seen any warming stations or cooling stations for people who need it. So can you expound on that?
Yeah,
please?
what is your closest intersection?
Oh, you mean a street-wise?
Like where you live? Yeah.
Oh, it would be Valhalla and Valencia.
Like Valencia? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm on Camino Verde and Valencia. So that's what
Okay.
I'm trying to figure it out. So I
Yeah.
think the closest cooling station, all of the libraries are cooling stations. And so that is still quite a distance. And then what used to be the women's work release program right on the corner of Mission and Silver Lake, that is a cooling station as well. And so what happens, I think, and well, in my experience, what's happened is when I first moved in October of 2020, we didn't have a lot of things, and we still don't have a lot of grocery stores and stuff, but things are sort of popping up as the population sort of settles. And I think that's usually what happens. We're seeing, you know, like a Dutch Bros is building right around the corner. So my daughter's very excited about that one. But I think the closest, we do have definitely food deserts. And I think that that's why a lot of these programs that exist are trying to make sure that SNAP and EBT is available for fresh produce, because it is just so expensive. Everything is so expensive. People used to cook at home because it was cheaper, and now it's sort of it's right around the same. So yes, food deserts are a major issue. Cooling stations are a major issue. And I remember when we had outages with TEP, many people were going to the Casino del Sol in that parking lot there, and we were giving out ice and water and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the closest cooling station to you is either, at this point, would probably be Valencia Library or that one on Mission and Silver Lake and D5. Not enough, absolutely not.
Right. Is there any plans for any type of grocery stores or?
Well,
gas stations or anything to be there?
I mean, so what we've been getting, much of that up until you get to Kenny is still the city of Tucson. And so we're continually getting requests for, different expansions on businesses. I do know that, public transportation is an issue in that area.
Yes.
We don't have public transportation.
No.
And so working with the city of Tucson is a priority right now in making sure that we can continue to have accessible quality public transit. Because if my children didn't have access to, me driving into work and would have to rely on public transit, I would have to drop them off a distance from our home, or they'd have to walk there.
Right.
So yeah, I think that it's not accessible, and definitely we're not thinking about all of the people in our community when we're setting up these neighborhoods that are just sort of islands by themselves.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, go right to you, Mike. You got the mic.
First of all, thank you for being here, Adelita. It's always good to see you. Paul Stapleton Smith had a question in the chat. He wants to compliment your staff. First of all, he says they're enormously accessible, policy savvy, and helpful in providing constituent service.
I will be sure to send them the kudos, because they do deserve it.
Yeah. And would you please explain what the supervisor staff does and how critical they are to successful governance, and perhaps some of the things that they can do for constituents that people may not be aware of?
Yeah, I think that what's been really interesting, and I first noticed it when I came into office, I asked the then county administrator, Huckleberry, what do our offices do? Like, are there certain constituent calls that we take care of? And he said, well, every office does it their own way. Like, so what does that mean? So that's why we actually came up with the strategic plan in the first place. But many times what I've noticed happens is constituents will call because they've tried other places. They're trying to figure out, like, I need a permit for a certain thing, or I need to understand there's a wash behind my house, and there are people that are, kind of congregating and lighting fires. Who do I talk to? And if they call us, that means they've tried other places and couldn't reach somebody. And so I think our job is to navigate those systems for them. We had a constituent just a couple weeks ago that there was some construction on her street, and literally the next day, all of her pipes were backed up. And she was told that that's a responsibility of the homeowner. And so we dug into it, and it was not. It was the responsibility of the construction company, who had to then come out and fix that. But that would have been tens of thousands of dollars on a homeowner. So I feel like that's our job, is to sort of help navigate those systems. Anything to do with the health department, with wastewater, those are all our functions under Pima County. And, economic development, workforce development. We do have collaborations with the city of Tucson and some of the other cities in our vast county. But for the most part, that's what I think we hope to help constituents with, is sort of navigate. And sometimes the answer is, I'm sorry, that's not, it's a city function, or it's somebody else, or it's a private business. But I do believe that lending our voice in an email and a phone call to start asking questions does help grease the wheels a little bit. And I believe that that's our responsibility. And to advocate for issues that, we've had people that ask, can we do a proclamation on a certain thing? Or do you guys get involved in this? Or can you come to a neighborhood event? I mean, if you look at our social media, our office is busy every day, and I'm not always there, can't always be there, but this office is. And I think that that's being out there and being able to be accessible is critically important. And that is our job for sure.
I do have a question of my own, if you don't mind, Joe.
Of course.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
Oh, I'm answering for you. Sorry.
I hate to shift gears to a much grimmer topic, but I would like to hear what's going on at the county regarding gun violence and controlling and regulating firearms. I saw a statistic the other day that we've had more public shootings, mass shootings this year than we had in the decade from 1990 to 2000. So it's an accelerating and pressing issue, and I just want to know, what is Pima County doing about it?
Well, when I first came into office, I met with Moms Demand Action. I met with individuals like Molly McCassin, who have been really instrumental in this issue and trying to figure out how can we curb the access of people that should not have weapons. And so we passed several regulations in-house. We've been challenged already. It literally, as soon as we pass any kind of ordinance, we're served like the next day. And so I think absent a change at the state legislature and a more balance in that system, we're going to continue to have that roadblock because as it was explained to me early on by a former colleague, Pima County is like the weak arm of the state. And so that's why the city of Tucson can do certain things under their charter that we can't do in Pima County. We follow the state's law. And so they have made it increasingly difficult for local municipalities to be able to take any steps in taking care of our people. But with that, we have passed several regulations. We passed a regulation against straw purchases. We passed a regulation that if you're, and that one was addressed to straw purchases, but let me just give you an example of how simple a thing can become such a huge blown up issue. So what we were saying is that if you misplace your weapon, we'd like you to report it to the authorities so they know, like your gun was stolen. We just want you to know, like, let us know that that's happening. So if it is found somewhere, we can kind of connect it, try to figure out how it got into, our community. That we were told is a violation of, Fifth Amendment right. I'm like, what is that? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Any conversation about safe, accessible, no one is talking about taking away your weapons. We're talking about you keeping them locked up and safe is a big deal. So some of the things we did early on and have continued to do when working with our Pima County attorney is giving out thousands and thousands of gun locks at a lot of these sales, these, different gun sales, and sort of like a convention kind of thing. They just kind of gather for 3 or 4 days. And we've had classes about gun safety. And what I was really surprised about is that we were welcomed into those spaces, knowing that my position is, I would like to not have them at all on any of our county properties. But if we have to, what are some ways that we can make it safer and get information out about the importance of keeping these safe? I talk to principals and administrators every day. I have many friends as a result of 20 years on the TUSD school board, and the number of young people that have come with a weapon on campus increases annually. And that's just not something that we can allow to continue.
Susie Anderson has a follow-up on my question in the chat. She'd like to know what our involvement is in, or do we have red flag laws applicable here in Arizona or in Pima County that you're aware of?
So they're like, no, we don't have, I believe that there are civil court orders that we can allow a person to temporarily remove. We can temporarily remove their weapons. And I do believe that courts can do this. They're modeled after a lot of domestic violence restraining orders. And I do believe courts have access to that, but that's not something that is under the purview of Pima County. And that's one thing that I think, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, just as a former prosecutor, I can say that, yes, you can the courts can order a person to surrender their guns. However, in my experience, it's less than effective because the sheriff's office and police and Tucson police really don't really check and enforce it.
So Lillian Fox, you have the last question.
When George mentioned the cooling stations, that reminded me the county has the most brilliant flyer on the cooling stations, and what makes it brilliant is it doesn't just show you a map, because people who don't have cars, a map's pretty worthless. And this cooling station flyer the county puts out gives the bus line that go by the cooling station, and the times they're open. And there are a lot more besides the libraries. Now, none of the Pima County libraries that I've found carry the thing. I go to a wonderful Pima County library. It's fabulous. The only time they have those cooling station flyers is if I make the copies and I put them in their hands. that whenever I talk to them, they're not sure whether they're supposed to make their copies or whether the county's supposed to send the copies to them. So they don't have the copies. One of the libraries in your district that I've gone to, it's the same deal, except they were less than interested. I don't think if I'd made copies, they'd have put them out. You need to make your library supply those pamphlets because they're wonderful. You know, putting the bus line that goes past the cooling station is exactly what people who don't have cars need.
Yep. I think that sometimes that's a communication issue amongst different departments. And so sometimes you have the health department and our communications departments that are working independent to get this great idea out there, but they're not talking to the libraries and maybe some of our other offices that are community like facing, like you see a lot of people coming in. So I think it's important for us. And so thank you for bringing it up. We'll definitely follow up on that. And I do want to say before, absolutely. And I do want to say before we get off that just to give you an idea of the number of people that voted in this last election, 21% of registered voters voted. So if we can get more people out and returning that ballot, we would be in a much better position to be able to do some of the things we want, like flipping our legislature and making sure that Harris Walls is elected. So I hope that you'll join any of the efforts that are going on. I know that for some people, it's, you know, walking door to door is not something that you're comfortable doing or don't want to do or can't do. The heat is still a real thing. And, you know, phone banking isn't something for you, but we have bundling lit, we have collating, we have writing postcards. I mean, there is something for everyone. So please do reach out to our campaign to get involved. And we are working collaboratively with the Harris Walls campaign. So we will be carrying literature and doing all of that for everybody.
Let's kind of thank Adelita for a great program, everybody.
Thank you.
Come on, want to see those hands? Want to see hands? Yep. Yep. Want to see those hands? Okay. Adelita, you're wonderful. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope to see you all soon on a Saturday or another event coming up.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.